Hi, everyone. Thanks again for being at our Axios AI Summit in DC today. I wanted to give another shout out in case you missed it. My colleague Maria Curie and I will be writing AI Plus Government as a takeover to the Friday edition of the AI Plus newsletter. So make sure you sign up for that. Get the smartest reporting on AI and tech policy. Heading to Axios.com for more info. And now to our next portion of programming. Washington has been scrambling to keep pace with AI, and the debates are heating up. From concerns about national security, free speech, and regulation, these conversations are shaping America's competitive edge. Joining us next is Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, who chairs the Senate Commerce Committee. Senator, welcome to the Axios AI Summit stage. Thanks for being here with us, Senator Cruz. We appreciate it. Let's get right to the point. Yesterday, you said at an event that the AI moratorium that you tried to champion through the Senate is not all dead. Tell us exactly what that looks like in efforts to revive that, and do you have the support of the White House in doing so?
So I will say, just listening to the prior speaker, I think this may be the first time in history that an executive branch appointee said he had no idea what K Street was.
Yeah, you might be right.
That's truly a remarkable moment. It's a great thing. So, yes, I'm working very closely with the White House. One of the elements of the President's AI action plan is the state moratorium. We had an agreement. It was inches from being adopted in the One Big Beautiful Bill, and at the last minute, the agreement fell apart, so we did not have the votes at the end of the day, but I still think we'll get there, and I'm working closely with the White House, closely with the administration on it.
And can you tell us at all what vehicle that could be in? Will it be in a must-pass bill for the end of this year? Is it pushed to next year?
I think all of those questions are still under discussion, so we do not have a plan we're ready to roll out yet.
Mm-hmm. So tell me what's unique about AI regulation and that the federal government should definitively say, let's slow down, let's not do this, let's make sure we have federal standards. Because in other cases, you, other Republicans, other Democrats are very much in favor of states' rights and states being able to regulate how they want. So why is this different?
Well, let me step back for a minute and give just a broader overview, and then I'll answer your specific question. But I think we are at an incredibly consequential inflection point in U.S. economic history. And I would hearken back to 30 years ago. To the 1990s and the birth of the internet. And I'll do something that might surprise some folks here. I'll praise a Democrat president, Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, at the dawn of the internet, signed into law an executive order that memorialized a light touch regulatory approach to the internet. It said we're going to stay out of it. And by the way, Congress worked hand in hand with him and so barred taxation on the internet at the same time. And the internet was a nascent technology. While the United States was going down that road, Europe took a fundamentally different approach. Europe decided to engage in a heavy-handed, prior approval regulatory approach. And the consequences of that decision were massive. Here's an amazing stat. In 1993, the economy of the United States and the economy of the EU were virtually identical. Today, the American economy is more than 50% larger than the EU. And there are two drivers of that: tech and the shale revolution. That's it. That comprises the entirety of that difference. And you think about, there are virtually no major tech companies in Europe. It killed the tech industry, and virtually every major tech company in the world is in the United States. We won that race. I think we are at a similar fork in the road, and if anything, it is more consequential. AI is going to transform every aspect of our life. And by the way, it's coming whether we like it or not. There are some folks who say, well, I don't like all the transitions that are coming with AI. I get that. There may be good aspects and bad aspects, but I do not think you will halt the advance of innovation and technology. And so the question is, which nation wins the race? China has been explicit. Their objective is to dominate AI globally by 2030. They've laid out a plan to have AI integrated into 90% of their economy, every aspect of the Chinese economy by 2030. And whichever nation wins the race for AI, the values of that nation will dominate AI. And so I want America to win. I want the jobs to be here. I want the prosperity to be here. I want the abundance to be here. And I want our values. I want the values of free markets and free speech and individual liberty rather than the values of the Chinese Communist Party and collectivism and surveillance and complete government control. So the consequences of who wins, I think, are the single most important economic decision facing the United States. Now, your specific question on a state moratorium, the answer is real simple. We have a national marketplace. There is no way for AI to develop reasonably and for us to win the race to beat China if we end up with 50 contradictory standards in 50 states, and not just 50 states, because cities and municipalities will do this. And so the consequences, do you really want Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass and Comrade Mamdani in New York City setting the rules for AI and governing AI across this country? I think that would be cataclysmic. And you mentioned briefly my being a Federalist. I absolutely am a Federalist. If you look at the Constitution, though, there's a reason Article 1, Section 8 has the Interstate Commerce Clause, precisely because Congress has the authority, and I think in this instance the responsibility, to ensure that we have interstate commerce that can thrive, because if we don't, if we let meddling politicians at every level of government put chains on the development of AI, we will most assuredly lose to China, because China is not constraining what's happening there.
So I want to talk about some of the bad aspects of AI you brought up. You're saying it's not all good. There are hard aspects. And the idea that we should wait to do major regulation. Yesterday in the Senate Judiciary Committee, the father of Adam Rain, the teenager who committed suicide after interacting with an OpenAI chatbot, he said, I don't think states should be waiting to do regulation. It's too dangerous. It's clearly we're seeing consequences now. States shouldn't be held back by the federal government. So how do you square your really pro-AI acceleration stance you just described with what you've always really cared about, which is children's online safety? How do you do that?
Look, I think you can and you must do both. I have been a passionate advocate of protecting kids online. Listen, I'm the father of 2 teenage daughters. It is hard. It's always been hard to be a teenager. It is unbelievably hard to be a teenager right now with the phones that we put in their hands that are portals to every evil force in the world. I don't know of a parent who isn't terrified about all of the pressures and influences online that are targeting our kids. The average teenager spends over 8 hours a day online on their phone. That is dangerous. And so, I'll point out I'm the only senator who has passed legislation directly restricting AI, and done so recently, and that is the Take It Down Act. The Take It Down Act I authored. I did it jointly with Amy Klobuchar, and it addressed non-consensual intimate images. So 2 circumstances. Number 1, real images. So you have a romantic partner. You have 2 romantic partners that are intimate together. They take intimate pictures together. They take videos together. And then they have a breakup. And one or the other decides, all right, I'm going to stick it to you, and I'm going to make these pictures or these videos public, so-called revenge porn. Nobody has the right to do that. That is a grotesque violation of your privacy, and it is completely that the victims of that are traumatized profoundly. There's a second iteration of it that is directly tied to this topic, which is AI is now enabling deep fakes. Mm-hmm. And in fact, just today, I saw the young lady who was the inspiration for the Take It Down Act. Her name's Elliston Berry, and she is a high school junior from Texas. When she was 14, she was a freshman in high school, and she lived up in Aledo, Texas, which is in North Texas. She woke up one morning, and a classmate of hers from school had taken a perfectly innocent picture of hers from social media, had used an AI to create a deep fake that appeared to be her naked. and then sent it to all of her classmates. And so she woke up Monday morning, her phone was blowing up, all of her classmates are saying, I'm looking at naked pictures of you. And she understandably was in tears, she was crushed. I mean, that's hard for anyone to endure, but especially a teenage girl. They found who did it, and there were no consequences for the boy who did it. The boy continued going to her school. It was not a crime. Ordinarily, if you send out naked pictures of a 14-year-old girl, that's child pornography. You can be prosecuted for that. But there was a hole in the law because it was a deep fake. It didn't meet the definition for child porn because it was not an actual picture. It just was indiscernible. You couldn't tell the difference between it and an actual picture. Well, she is a constituent, and so she and her mom ended up calling my office and saying, listen, you're my senator. Can you help me? And I want to give credit to my staff. They elevated this concern to me, and I looked at this and said, this is horrible. Let's do something to address this. So we drafted the Take It Down Act. It does two things. Number one, it makes it a crime. It makes it a felony to post non-consensual intimate images, either real pictures or deep fakes made using AI. But number two, it puts a legal obligation on tech platforms to take the content down. And, you know, when I introduced the legislation, I met Elliston and her mom, Anna, in my office for the first time. We were doing a press conference that day. And I asked her, I said, whatever happened to the pictures? And they both said it's the most frustrating thing. They said, we have called and emailed Snapchat over and over and over again, and they don't do anything. We just get a complete stiff arm. I turned to my team, I said, I want you to get the CEO on the phone today. I want those pictures down today. Within 2 hours, they pulled them down. Now, it should not take a sitting United States senator making a phone call to get the pictures down, and now it doesn't because under the law, and what we did, and again, I'm going to credit my staff because it was their idea, not mine, we borrowed a mechanism from existing law. So the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, been in law for a long time, protects copyrighted material. So if you tweet out a song from The Lion King, they'll take it down within hours because you can't send out copyrighted material. And every tech platform has a notice of takedown office that is devoted to responding to those complaints because they have a legal obligation to do so. So we just put non-consensual intimate images in the very same category so that you have now, if you were victimized, and deepfake non-consensual intimate images have increased more than 3,000% last year. More than 95% of the victims are women or teenage girls. And you now have a legal right, if you were victimized by this, to notify the tech platform, that is me, it is an intimate image, and you do not have my consent. And they have a federal statutory responsibility to take it down.
Senator, we are running out of time, but I wanted to ask you really quickly, since we're talking about legal protections and AI, should AI-generated content get Section 230 protections? And quick answer, because we're running out of time.
Look, Section 230 was part of that light touch regulatory approach, and I think Section 230 made sense at the dawn of the internet because you wanted this nascent industry to grow. Now tech platforms are powerhouses. I have long advocated for Section 230 reform. I don't support repeal of 230, but I think we should use Section 230 as leverage to stop online censorship. And in my view, big tech censorship has been the greatest threat to free speech and democracy that we have seen in modern times. And so I've long advocated that companies should lose their 230 immunity if they are engaged in censorship, if they are silencing voices.
If there's abusive content out there that was AI generated, or if people want to sue them over something they read that was inaccurate.
So there's ongoing legislation or litigation on that right now. I suspect the argument will be that under the plain language of Section 230, AI falls within it. I imagine there will be litigation on both sides, but I think it's early in determining that. But my guess is that current law will conclude that yes, it's covered under the terms of what Congress has passed.
And do you support that?
Look, I think avoiding censorship makes sense. But you mentioned that the hearing on chatbots. We're going to have to deal with very real threats and how we respond to them. I've got a different set of legislation called COSMA, the Kids Off Social Media Act, that I have along with Brian Schatz, Democrat from Hawaii. And it does several things. Number one, it prohibits children under 13 from having social media accounts. Number two, it prohibits tech companies from using algorithmic boosting for kids under 17 because so much garbage is pushed to our kids. And number three, and this is a different bill that I have that we merged, the other bill is called the Eyes on the Board Act, that says that any school that is receiving federal funds has to block social media on campus because when kids are in class, they ought to be looking at the board and listening to the teacher and not posting on Instagram. And so what is fascinating about that bill is virtually all of the sponsors are senators in their 40s and 50s. And I will say my colleagues in their 70s and 80s are very puzzled and don't understand. They're like, well, what's the problem here? And every one of us that has kids at home, as I said, I don't know a parent that isn't freaked out and worried, and I think we need to do a lot more to be protecting kids online.
Thank you, Senator Cruz. That is all the time we have, but thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.